Most people spray cockroaches, watch them scatter, and find them back in the same spots 3 days later. There is a $2 powder sitting in most pantries right now that works completely differently. And once you understand why roaches keep coming back after spraying, this method makes total sense. Before we get to the powder, there is one thing worth knowing about cockroaches that changes how you think about every method you have ever tried on them. Cockroaches are neophobic, which means they are instinctively wary of anything new placed in their environment. When you spray a surface, roaches that survive the initial contact learn to avoid that area. They do not leave. They reroute it. The colony as a whole shifts its movement patterns and continues living inside your walls, under appliances, and behind cabinets exactly as before, just using a slightly different path to get there. This is why the same infestation returns within a week of spraying every single time. And it is the core reason why a slow-acting bait method consistently outperforms contact sprays in controlled pest management studies. The powder is boric acid, and it has been used as a household pest control compound since the early 1900s. It is registered with the EPA as a pesticide and is the active ingredient in several professional pest control products sold under different brand names. But the raw compound itself is available at most hardware stores and pharmacies for about $2 to $3 for a bottle that lasts through multiple treatments. It is a naturally occurring compound derived from boron, a mineral found in soil and water, and it works through two separate mechanisms that work together to make it considerably more effective than most people expect. The first mechanism is physical. Boric acid is a fine powder, and when a cockroach walks through it, the particles stick to the oils and hairs on the insect's body and legs, similar to how chalk dust sticks to your hands. The particles then damage the outer waxy layer of the cockroach's exoskeleton, which is the same water retention mechanism that diatomaceous earth disrupts in other insects. The roach loses moisture it cannot replace, and this begins its decline within hours of contact. The second mechanism is chemical, and this is the part that makes boric acid uniquely effective for cockroaches specifically. Cockroaches are meticulous groomers. They spend a significant portion of their time cleaning the particles off their legs and antennae, and in doing so, they ingest the boric acid directly. Once ingested, it disrupts the cockroach's digestive system and nervous system over the following hours. The roach does not die instantly, which matters for the same reason that delayed action matters with ant bait. A cockroach that picks up boric acid while foraging returns to the nest before it dies, and in close contact with other roaches, it spreads the compound through direct contact and through the colony's food-sharing behaviors. This is how a well-placed boric acid treatment reaches the roaches you can never see, not just the ones wandering across your kitchen floor at 2 in the morning. Now here is the most important thing in this entire video, and it is the mistake that causes this method to fail for most people who try it. Stay with this part, because getting the application wrong turns a highly effective method into one that does nothing at all. And most people who try boric acid and say it did not work made exactly the error covered here. The amount of boric acid you apply matters more than where you apply it. The instinct is to put down a heavy visible layer, almost like a barrier or wall of powder. This is the wrong approach. Cockroaches will detect a thick, disturbed pile of unfamiliar powder and avoid it entirely, exactly the same neophobic avoidance behavior described earlier. What you want is a layer so thin it is barely visible to the naked eye, almost like a light dusting of frost on a cold morning. When the layer is this thin, cockroaches walk through it without registering it as something to avoid, pick up particles on their legs, and carry it back to the nest before the effect sets in. For application, the best tool is a boric acid duster or a simple squeeze bottle with a small nozzle, both of which cost a few dollars and give you controlled, thin application. A kitchen baster or an old condiment bottle with a small hole poked in the lid also works well. You want to apply this in the specific locations where cockroaches actually travel, not in open floor spaces where you have seen them, but in the narrow gaps and edges they use as highways when humans are not present. The 5 places that matter most are these: The gap between your stove and the adjacent cabinet or counter, which is a high heat, high moisture zone that cockroaches are strongly attracted to. The underside of the stove drawer if your oven has one, since this is a warm, enclosed space almost nobody ever checks. The gap behind and beneath the refrigerator, which combines heat from the compressor with dark, sheltered access routes to the rest of the kitchen. The inside edges of cabinet hinges, and the gap at the back of cabinet shelves where they meet the wall, since cockroaches prefer to travel with a surface on each side of their body. And the gap along the base of pipes under your sink, where water condensation creates the moisture cockroaches need to survive. Apply a thin dusting in each of these 5 areas, and resist the urge to apply more just because you cannot see it clearly. Here is something that will happen in the first 24 hours that catches most people off guard, and it is worth knowing in advance so you do not wipe everything up and start over. You may see more cockroach activity in the first day than you did before applying anything. This is not a sign that it is not working. Cockroaches that have encountered the powder are behaving erratically as the boric acid begins affecting their nervous system, and they are moving out of their normal hiding spots into more visible areas. Pest control professionals recognize this as an indicator that the treatment has made contact with the colony. Resist the urge to spray them when you see them. Every cockroach that scatters from a disturbed nest during this period is carrying particles back to other roaches they came in contact with. By hours 36 to 48, this initial spike in visible activity typically drops off sharply as the boric acid works its way through the colony. A direct note on safety before anything else. Boric acid is not the same compound as borax, though both contain boron. Boric acid is more concentrated and should be handled carefully. It is mildly toxic if ingested in significant quantities, which is why it should never be applied in open areas where children or pets can access it, particularly not on floor surfaces, countertops, or anywhere food is prepared. Stick to the enclosed, inaccessible locations described here, and the risk to your household is minimal since those areas are not places children or pets typically reach. Wash your hands after application and store the container out of reach the same way you would any household cleaning product. A final honest note on the timeline, because 48 hours deserves a straightforward explanation. For a light infestation where you are seeing occasional roaches, 48 hours from a well-placed boric acid treatment is a realistic window for a noticeable reduction in visible activity. For a moderate or heavy infestation, the visible population may drop within 48 hours, but full elimination, including egg cases in protected areas of the colony, typically takes 1 to 2 weeks of the boric acid remaining undisturbed in place. Egg cases, called oothecae, are tough protective capsules that a female cockroach deposits in sheltered spots, and each one contains anywhere from 16 to 50 eggs, depending on the species. Boric acid does not penetrate the casing directly, which is why the timeline extends beyond the initial 48-hour window. What happens is that nymphs emerging from egg cases encounter the boric acid during their first foraging trips and are eliminated at that stage before they can reproduce. This is also why disturbing or cleaning the treated areas too early resets the process. Boric acid does not degrade or lose effectiveness unless it gets wet or is disturbed, which means a single application in dry enclosed spaces can remain active for months without needing to be reapplied. This is what makes it fundamentally different from spray treatments that wear off within days. If you set this up in the 5 locations mentioned tonight, check those same locations in 48 hours. What you are looking for is the presence of dead roaches near the treated spots, which confirms the boric acid made contact with the foraging population. If the treated areas remain completely undisturbed, but you are still seeing roaches elsewhere, it means the colony is traveling a different route than the one you treated, and repositioning to follow their actual trail will make the next application more effective. Stay subscribed because the next video covers the one thing about cockroach infestations that every spray and trap method ignores completely, which is why they keep coming back no matter what you do. And the fix is something most people have in their kitchen right now. Let me know in the comments whether you see them mostly in the kitchen, the bathroom, or somewhere else entirely, because location tells me exactly which entry point and harborage area to cover in detail next.